Hey everybody, Sean here from Somm Wine Club, and I'm going to take you through a tasting of the 2021 Darnberg Money Spider Roussanne that you have in the January 2022 Somm Wine Club box. So, for those of you that don't know, or I haven't talked to, I actually lived in Adelaide in South Australia for a few months back in 2013. And so Darnberg was a place that I visited a couple of times while I lived down there. It is quite an adventure. Chester Osborne, the kind of current head of the Osborne family and head of the Darnberg winery, is kind of known as like the Willy Wonka of wine. He's a little bit wild, he's got crazy frizzy hair, and he's a big boisterous Australian dude. And the Darnberg, I think it's called the Wine Cube, is a tasting room and kind of visitor center that they've built on the property, and you'll see it in the note cards that I printed for this wine. In the background, it's this blue and silver and kind of geometric shaped building. Fascinating and really interesting, but that barely scratches the surface of what the Osborne family and Darnberg have done for Darnberg, for McLaren Vale, for South Australia, and for Australian wine in general. Money Spider Roussanne is one of their kind of flagship white wines. In 2000, they were planning to make the first vintage, and they found that their entire crop of Roussanne was covered in these tiny little money spiders, a little genus of spider that is said to bring good luck if you are kind to them. So they opted to not harvest their entire crop of Roussanne in the year 2000 and let the spiders be. And so they didn't make a Roussanne that year, and they waited until the next vintage, when by that point the spiders had thankfully moved on, and they were able to produce the first vintage of what became Darnberg's Money Spider Roussanne in 2001. So we are now 20 years later, and this wine, like I said, has become a flagship white wine for Darnberg, for their estate. And I always think that this is so delicious, such a fantastic representation of McLaren Vale, of the climate, of using varieties to their advantage. Roussanne is not a variety that is planted a lot outside of its home. Roussanne is traditionally a French variety. Its home is in the northern Rhone Valley, in Saint Joseph and Hermitage. It's blended typically with Marsanne. It's very rare to see Roussanne just planted and grown and bottled on its own. There's some in Australia, there's some in California, and that's pretty much it. There's a handful in France, but usually this wine, this grape variety, is blended. So getting the chance to see it on its own, I think, is a unique opportunity. So Roussanne has a really interesting textural element to it, but its aromatic components are also really interesting. It's almost like it wants to be tropical. It wants to be this kind of ripe, really juicy fruit, but it's being restrained. It has a citrusy element, a tartness to it, a freshness to it that just kind of balances out that desire to be overripe or tropical. It's like, I don't know, passion fruit, or it's like slightly riper citrus. It has like a ripe apple, Anjou pear, or like a really ripe yellow pear to it. There's some kind of musky or grassy, like dried grass character, and a little bit of floral citrus character as well, like citrus blossom. But texture is really getting into Roussanne, so let's taste it. The wine has body. This is not a light-bodied wine. When I think about white wines that I want to drink when it is cooler outside, I'm often thinking of Chardonnay and Rhone white wines, Marsanne and Roussanne, because they have this textural element, this roundness, and this richness, which is great when the weather is a little bit cooler. I want something that stands up and has a little bit more body and a little bit more intensity, but is still refreshing at the same time. So, like I said, cool climate Chardonnay. Rhone white wines, Roussanne, Marsanne, blended or otherwise, are often on my to-do list when it's cooler out. A lot of flavor, a lot of intensity, and like I said, even though it is a richer, fuller bodied wine, it's still fresh. It's still cleansing, it's not heavy, it's not cloying, it's not sticking in my palate. I want to keep going back and having another sip. There's a lot of flexibility with food pairing with a wine like that because, like I said, it has acidity and freshness and it's still cleansing. You can do it with something that is slightly richer. If you need a little break from eating like heavy, cool, heavy, warm like dishes that are kind of suited to cooler weather, go for it with like, get some aburi sushi. Get something that has some creaminess to it, like smoked salmon with cream cheese, and you're doing your Alaska rolls or something like that. This will stand up, but it can also pair with like a lighter dish of like roasted fish or roasted chicken. Get some lemon, get some citrus in there, something that's gonna brighten it up, something that's gonna give you a lift. Super flexible, super easy to enjoy with or without food. This is a great kind of midweek night if you're doing something that's like a one pot dinner and you just want a refreshing, easy drinking white to have. This is perfect. I think this is great. So I hope you enjoy. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.